Welcome back, everyone, to another thrilling episode of Thrive Street Program with Coach 2Js. This is your host, Jeremy Jones, and today we're going to talk about how hard 80 to 90% should be on squats and how we've got one more week of the strength focus after this one, as well as some tips for knees to elbows. So, one of the things that we want people to understand is these percentages are a guide. 10% is a pretty wide range, and that is to allow for the differences between men and women. A lot of women, for example, can lift higher percentages close to their max for sets. For men, a 1 rep max is going to be their 2 rep max is going to be far less. Where women, they can do 2 reps or 5 reps a lot closer to their 1 rep max. So that means that a lot of times women will want to be a little bit on the higher side of these percentages, and then men will be on the lower side. But there's also how they're feeling that day. So again, usually we want with these strength focuses, we want them to be relative to their last lift. But there's also how people are feeling, because we want to make sure that they're able to control the bar with proper form. They're able to accelerate the bar, so they're using velocity and trying when they're doing the concentric part of the motion, they're moving with by accelerating, which is pushing hard, so the bar is accelerating, but then also having a good controlled eccentric portion. And so we want a little bit of play, but 80 to 90% could also be sort of more of a effort, or RPE, rate of perceived effort type of thing, where 80 to 90% means if they were trying to go 90 to 100%, for example, they may not finish 7 sets of 3. That would be that's too close to their max. So at the end of 7 sets of 3, we're on we're on week 5. At the end of week 5, we've got one more week to go. We're going to be doing these same loads at 4s and 5s, so they should still be doable. We shouldn't see too many missed reps at this lower rep range. But they might have to break up the last set into two and a short rest, and then a 1. So that's what we're looking for when it comes to that sort of 80 overall, the percentages. But 80 to 90% should be you're confident you can finish it, but there's a small chance that you might have to break up the last set, or maybe last 2 sets. And then also reminding people, hey, you're probably going to do at least one more squat session next week. So just be aware that you're going to have to do this same weight or something very close to it for a set of 4. So if they try to make a weight jump today and they can't finish, they're on round 4 or 5 or set 4 or 5, they already can't do 3 with good form, then it's probably a little too heavy. Maybe back off 5 or 10 pounds and then finish the workout, and then use that new 5 or 10 pounds lighter weight for the next workout, whether it's 4s or 5s or whatever. All right, so we got our warm up here, and then we're flowing through those barbell complexes. Remember, this is your chance to really get detailed with these the barbell movements, and we want to ingrain those movement patterns. And so even though the bar is really light, people can sort of coast through these movements and do them without really trying to match the movement, or without intent. So make sure that you're giving lots of coaching cues, that you're watching people and correcting people, and that they're actually thinking about what they're doing when they do these dynamic warm-ups. So that way we can get the benefit of seeing how people move. We're actually physically warming them up. We're doing some correctives and some prehab type stuff, and they're getting more technique work when they do it, instead of just going through the motions. All right, then we've got our hip activation stuff, and again, with these heavy squats, avoid a lot of static stretching. It's more about the activation, and you can do some range of motion things to help people get into a better position, but it's not about lots of static stretching before we do it. Now we've got dog days. From a timing standpoint, no skill practice warm-up. Got 7 sets of 3. So again, you got 3 minutes rest between sets, so 25 minutes to get through this, or so to get through the squats. So just be aware of that. We want to finish the hip mobility about 10, no later than 15 after, and then 25 minutes will put you at 40 after. So that way you've got 20. If you go a little long in the squats, you may have 15 to 20 minutes to get through the Metcon. All right, so we've got 40 knees to elbows. This is one of those movements that we did some toes to bar earlier in the programming, and so people might still be a little bit sore from that. But we want people to tagging this, putting these tag teaming it this week to kind of get people to really use their bodies correctly, right? So now once their muscles are a little bit tender but ready for action, it's good to increase the blood flow, and it can actually increase recovery and adaptation. But sometimes when the muscles are a little tender, it helps them feel the muscles properly when they're so they can use them more instead of just doing the motion. They're actually thinking about which muscles they're going to be using. Um, so, for the knees to elbows, we want people to break this up. You want to think about this almost like a strength type movement, where they're going to be breaking these up, moving with really good form in the beginning, and then as they get to the end, they should speed up a little bit because they went so slow in the beginning, as opposed to the natural inclination, which is always to crank out a big set and then let the wheels fall off, and then they're doing down to singles at the end. It's better if they start with a bunch of sets of 5, or maybe 10, and then a bunch of 5s, and then 8-2 at the end or something like that, because they paced it correctly. That usually means that they're going to be moving with much better form in the beginning, and better form overall. So they're going to be less likely to injure themselves, and they're ingraining better movement patterns when they approach it with that in mind. So one of the things about the knees to elbow is that they're a little bit different than toes to bar. Toes to bar tend to allow you to use a lot more of the leg momentum of the leg swing, because toes to bar, what happens is because of the swinging of the legs forward, because they're straight, we can get a lot more kind of kipping motion through the toes to bar. It also tends to reward people who are more mobile through their posterior chain, right? So if they have more range of motion through their glutes and hamstrings and everything, they're going to have a little easier time with toes to bar than somebody who's tight. So knees to elbows tend to be because we're doing a more bent knee position. We're going to be more. Did I draw that right? That's their foot. There we go. It doesn't require as much flexibility because now the knees are bent, so that creates a lot more slack through the chain. They also tend to be a lot more grip centric, and I think that has to do with the changes in the kip. It's a little bit more of a shorter, tighter kip versus kind of a longer kip that we can see with the toes to bar. And so in this case, it's also okay. I'm fine with people doing these on the rings. I think the movement of the rings, not to mention that the fact that the palms face in, can be a lot easier on people's shoulders when they do these, and it does tend to save the grip. So I'm totally fine with that. And I'm also fine with people bending their elbows a little bit. We just want to make sure that if they're going to say they did knees to elbows, that their knees actually touch their elbows, not their triceps, not their armpits, right? Those would be considered sort of scaling or substitutions. It's a progression toward knees to elbows. And this bent elbow may also be part of the reason why the grip is being taxed more, because what we know is bent arm, because bent arms tend to tax the grip a lot more because of some of the physiology of the forearm in relation to the elbow. So like on rope climbs and things, bending the arm really taxes the grip a lot more, and people don't bend their elbows on toes to bar. Usually they keep their arms straight, so then their grip can last a little longer. So that's one of the reasons why I think knees to elbows tend to be a little more grippy, is because people tend to bend their elbows to get that, to shorten the range of motion slightly. So again, all good things. I do like toes to bar overall more than knees to elbows as a general movement, but they're both good movements and they both have their place. But and it's good to change things up. One interesting fact is that earlier on in CrossFit, it was almost all knees to elbows, and there's very few toes to bar. And I do think toes to bar, like chest to bar, was kind of popularized because of it was easier to know that you did the rep right, or for judging purposes in competition. So that's one of the reasons why toes to bar became popular. But unlike the chest to bars, I do think it is kind of a little bit better motion, because it is rewarding people who have good hip mobility, right? It's rewarding people that have that range of motion, and so it's a better example of athleticism because it requires that range of motion. So again, people are going to have to break these up, and obviously the smaller people, or the people who are really good at knees to elbows, are going to get a little bit of a head start on the next portion, so that's a reward for them. But then of course, bigger people, or people people who tend to be a little bit tighter or whatever, again, bigger people are going to struggle because of the grip. But also means the sandbag or the plate carries are not going to be as challenging. So it's kind of that you'll never know necessarily who's going to win just by looking at somebody or knowing their performances. So it kind of makes it a little bit more exciting of a workout. So after we finish the knees to elbows, we're going to go into a run as far as possible with a sandbag or a plate. Ideally, you can do this outside, but it's very easily done indoors. It can be held any way. Obviously, sandbags across the shoulders is probably the easiest way to do it. If you guys are doing the plate option because you don't have enough sandbags, then it's just they can hold the plate on one shoulder. They can hold on their back, kind of like a backpack. And it is a little bit aggressive, and it's going to be uncomfortable, but that's okay. It's okay to do things that are slightly uncomfortable, and they can put it down and rest as much as they want. Now the hanging knee raises should take, or excuse me, the knees to elbows should take about 2 to 3 minutes. So if somebody hasn't finished their 40 reps, maybe because they didn't scale properly, at 3 minutes, you might, depending how close they are, you might just cut them off, right? So if they're still going at 3 minutes and they've got 10 plus and they're doing one every 10 or 15 seconds, just say, hey, look, just stop where you're at and get on the sandbag run, right? So I put this in here so people know, okay, I need to, I might select knees to elbows, but I need to be ready to scale down if I feel like I'm going too slow, right? If I've only done 10 or 15 at 2 minutes, then I know, okay, I need to change it up so I can still get a good workout in. Otherwise, just they're not going to get a very a metabolic workout. It's just going to be a knees to elbows workout. But I did put a cache out here if people want it, just a real simple 4-minute calorie rower aerodyne, or we can do some hypertrophy stuff. But that's it for today, guys. Thanks a lot, and thrive on.